Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar about how to deal with burnout. My name is Tanner Fredrickson. I work here at CPA Site Solutions, and I'm also a certified life coach. And I'm excited to give you guys hopefully some helpful thoughts and practices to help deal with burnout. I know that being overwhelmed and burnout can be a real common thing among accountants during the busy season, during tax season especially. So hopefully some of these things will be helpful to you. As a quick summary, it should be a fairly short webinar. We're going to just talk about the difference between burnout and overwhelm, what causes both of those things. We're going to go over something called the self-coaching model, which is just a helpful way to kind of organize your thoughts and sort of coach yourself through some difficult emotions like overwhelm and burnout. And we'll talk specifically about what to do when you feel overwhelmed and what to do when you feel burned out. So first off, I want to talk about the difference between burnout and overwhelm. There actually is a difference. Sometimes we use those two things interchangeably, but they're very different. Overwhelm means overengaged. So you've got all sorts of things going on. You're constantly putting out fires. You're just firing on all cylinders. Everything is just happening, and you're overengaged, overstimulated. Burnout is when you're disengaged. You've literally burnt out. You're numb to it all. You can't feel anything. Everything's piling up around you and you're not even aware of it. You're just disengaged. Now here's the thing, overwhelm leads to burnout. So they're related, but they're not the same. They're a little bit different. I think the way that we describe feelings and emotions is really important. So what causes overwhelm and burnout? Some causes of burnout. It's usually a nasty combination of extended periods of feeling overwhelmed and physical or mental exhaustion, as well as poorly dealing with stress and stressors, and then a whole bunch of other little smaller factors that get sprinkled in there. Those are the three biggest ones. We get burnt out when we've allowed ourselves to be overwhelmed for an extended period of time, and we're physically and mentally exhausted, and we're not dealing with the stresses in our life in a healthy way. That is always a recipe for feeling burnt out. So, what causes overwhelm? First off, I just want to mention some things that do not cause overwhelm, but we oftentimes think do. So, overwhelm is not caused by the length of our to do list or the number of hours that we work in a week. It is caused by our thoughts, specifically our thoughts about those things, about the work that we have to do and how much of it, and the number of hours. Because you think about it, someone could be working 80 plus hours a week, but if they're really passionate about what they're working on and they feel like they're making progress and they're getting all these good results, they could actually be working 80 plus hours a week and actually be energized by that instead of overwhelmed by it, right? And somebody could be working 40 hours or less a week and be totally overwhelmed because their thoughts around it are such that it just everything feels really heavy. And so even though maybe it's not an insane amount of hours, you feel really overwhelmed by it all. It can all really pile up. So remember, overwhelm is caused by our thoughts, not by our circumstances, which means that we have some control over it. The thoughts that cause overwhelm are stressful thinking, just, oh, I have so much to do. I'm so stressed out about it. And scarcity thinking. Just scarcity thought is anything that basically is boiled down to not being enough or not having enough. Either I'm not good enough, or I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough resources. Any of those thoughts all can contribute to feeling overwhelmed. So those are the causes of burnout and overwhelm. Now I want to start getting into some things that you can do when you're in those places, when you're having those feelings, that'll be helpful. So I want to talk about something called the self-coaching model. When I got my life coach certification from a place called the Life Coach School, and they talk to you about this model for coaching yourself, basically a model for how to look at your thoughts and evaluate them and gain more control over them, your thoughts and your feelings. And it basically is like this. All of us in our lives run into different circumstances. So that is things outside of our control. Could be, tax season, could be relationships, other people, things that happen to us that are outside of our control, that are just there. Those are circumstances. And those circumstances trigger a thought. a thought that we have, a story that we tell ourselves about that circumstance, our beliefs about that circumstance. Those thoughts create a feeling, an emotion. The thought is what creates the feeling, not the circumstances, our thoughts about it that create that feeling. That feeling drives an action or an inaction. It drives us to do something or to not do something, either to gain that feeling or to get rid of it, right? And that action creates a result. So, to put that into context or to give kind of an example here, a circumstance might be that it is tax season. Whether you want it to be or not, it is here. And a thought you might have about it is, I have too much to do. That thought might create a feeling of overwhelm for you. That feeling of overwhelm might drive some different actions. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you think about when you're feeling overwhelmed, what do you do or what do you not do? Oftentimes, if people are feeling overwhelmed, then they'll start to procrastinate or they'll eat or scroll social media or do more research, kind of avoid actually taking action on the tasks. And well, I got to research it more, stare mindlessly at a spreadsheet. So many, endless number of things we do when we're overwhelmed that usually are not productive or helpful for the situation. And what is the result of all of that? Well, tasks pile up, and then you might actually end up having too much to do. So it's interesting. You'll see that the thought is what creates the result. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. We have a thought that we believe that'll create a feeling that will drive an action that makes that thought a reality. So if we want to change the results that we're seeing, we want to change the feelings that we're feeling, you got to start with changing your thoughts. So, what to do when you feel overwhelmed? And we'll come back to that self coaching model and kind of talk more about how that can apply to these different things. What are some things we can do when we feel overwhelmed? Make sure you're eating, make sure you are getting enough sleep, and make sure you're moving. It doesn't have to be crazy amount of exercise, but are you doing a walk, going to the gym, moving in some way? If you're not doing those three things, if you're not eating enough and hopefully relatively, preferably relatively healthy-ish food, if you're not getting enough sleep, you're not moving, and you feel sluggish, like no other coping strategies that you try to employ to deal with overwhelm or burnout are really going to have much of an effect. If you're hungry and tired and sluggish, then doing meditations or mindfulness exercises are only going to do so much. They're going to have a very limited impact if you're hungry and you're tired and you haven't moved at all. So take care of those things first, get that baseline down, see how you feel after that. And then if you're still feeling overwhelmed, you're still feeling burned out, maybe try some of these other practices as well, like self-coaching. So one thing you can do if you're in the middle of overwhelm, you're feeling overwhelmed, take 5 minutes, get a notepad, get a piece of paper, and do what we call as a thought download. Basically, just take 5 minutes and just write. Dump all of the thoughts from your head onto the paper. And don't judge those thoughts. Don't try to edit them. Don't try to make them sound better than they really are. You're not going to show this to anyone. It's just for you. You can throw it away right after, but just get them out of your head and onto paper. Just the key to this is just keep writing. You can set a timer on your phone. It can be 2 minutes, it can be 5 minutes, but just take some time and dump all of the thoughts in your head onto paper. Then once you've done that, look at what you've written down and try to separate the facts from the thoughts. A fact is something that is indisputable, something that could be proven in a court of law. So something like, I have too much to do, it's not a fact. That's a thought, right? Because too much is subjective. What does that mean, right? That can mean a lot of things to different people, right? A fact would be, I have 10 things I need to do today. And you could list those out. That would be a fact. So really get specific and separate what are the facts of the situation, of the circumstance, and what are just my thoughts about it. Maybe even on the back of that paper, on another piece of paper, write a line down the middle of the page and put them into two columns. Over here is the facts, over here is the thoughts. What you usually find is that you have a lot more thoughts than you have facts. And then pick a couple of thoughts, maybe even just one thought, and put that thought into that self-coaching model that we talked about. So if it's tax season or your job or whatever the circumstance might be, pick one of your thoughts about it, put that as the thought, and think, what feeling does this, when I think this thought, what feeling does that create? What emotion does that bring up? When I have that feeling, what are the actions that I take? What do I do or what do I not do? And what result is that creating? And if you can do that, that'll generate both the thought download, separating the facts from the thoughts and putting a thought through that model will create a whole bunch of awareness. So you'll be aware of, okay, here's what's actually going on. Here's, what I'm thinking, what is causing these feelings, what is creating these results. And once you know those things, once you're aware of all of that, then you can do something about it. And sometimes even just separating the facts from the thoughts alone can help you to feel less overwhelmed. Because when the thoughts are in our head, they're unmanageable and they're just running around, but if we can get them on paper and we can look at them, then we can start to question them. We can start to look at them objectively and things get a lot smaller. Whenever something's in your head, it feels really, really big. But if we can get it out on paper and we can question it and we can generate some awareness around it, things tend to become a little bit more manageable. Right. And then you can question those thoughts. Are they true? Like, is this thought that I'm having about this circumstance, is it really true? Or am I just making a lot of assumptions? Question those thoughts. And right. And even if they are true, are they helpful? Is this thought productive? Is it helping me to move to where I want to go or to be who I want to be? And if it's not, then maybe think about changing it, right? And not that you can jump from, a really negative thought to a really positive thought to everything's on fire to everything will be fine. That's a pretty hard jump to make. But even if you can say, all right, I was thinking initially everything is falling apart and I have too much to do and I'm overwhelmed, but you know, it might not be true. Even if you can acknowledge that the thought that you're having about the situation might not be true, that'll loosen your grip on it just a little bit. And then you can baby step from there to a more positive and productive way of thinking. And then once you've done that, you've you've questioned your thoughts, you have a little bit more grip on the situation, make a plan, stick to it. Right? I can sit here and be overwhelmed, or what am I going to do about it? What am I going to do to move forward? Even if it's just some small progress, make a plan, stick to it, and that'll help move you forward. And then set boundaries, which basically in its simplest form means intentionally saying yes or no to different things. Look at all of your if you're overwhelmed by all these like things to do, look at it honestly and say, do I really need to do all those things? Are there some things that I can say no to or that I can take off the list? Or are there some things that would be actually okay if they didn't get done? So that we talked about how to deal with overwhelm. What do you do when you are feeling truly, truly burnt out? You've already been in overwhelm for so long, and now you're just numb to it all and can't hardly even function. If you're at that point, you're truly burnt out. First thing to do is stop. Stop trying to push through when you're burnt out. Just stop, unplug, turn off your phone, turn off your computer, try to unplug from any electronics. Once again, try to eat something fairly healthy-ish, and then just lie down. Just close your eyes and just take a break from it all. If you're feeling burnt out, you need to give yourself space to process and to kind of come back to yourself. It'll help you. It won't necessarily get rid of the burnout, but it will help you come back to yourself just a little bit and make you a little bit more capable to address it. And so once you've done that, once you've started feeling a little bit more like yourself, you can start by asking some questions and maybe slowly revisiting it. Reconnect with your why. Why are you doing this? What is your motivation? Maybe you think about your spouse or your children or the vacation you're planning for, or whatever your why is. Reconnect with that and why you're doing this, why you're working on what you're working on. Reevaluate your priorities. Right? Once again, are there things that I'm telling myself are really essential to get done that really aren't, that I can let go of? And are there things that, even if we didn't get them done, it would be okay? And put everything in its proper order will help you to feel a little bit more in control. And then figure out how to work smarter and not harder. Are there tools that you can use or technology you can implement? Is there a coworker that can help you out? Can you delegate some things? Look at all those things, and then ask for help. That's from a coworker, from your boss. If it's with the work things, if you're having trouble really, if you're feeling really stuck in this burnout, don't feel like you can get yourself out of it, maybe talk to a therapist, talk to a mental health professional that can help you sort those things out and feel better and get more in control. There's never any shame in asking for help. And in fact, usually it's the wise and smart thing to do. That's our webinar. We hope that you enjoyed it and that you found some things helpful. Thank you so much for attending.